Hello lads, today I want to elaborate on the TV series Vikings, but first let me take adequate measures to deal with the apocalypse. Now, on a related note, we have the strategy game Vikings, which you see playing before us at the moment. It is played by no less than 20 million people worldwide, and if you admire the graphics and aesthetics of the game, obviously reminds quite a bit of Age of Empires 2 and similar strategy games. If you download the game via my link in the description, you'll get 200 gold and a protection shield. So yeah, check it out, first link in the description box below. Now, on another note before I begin to elaborate, I would just like to say that I did in fact apply for a role in Vikings the summer of 2015, and I got the heartwarming support from, some of you, at least those of you who were with me on Facebook then, because they had a casting in Stockholm, and the casting agency was just blown up by requests to have me on the show. So the role I applied for was to be Bjorn's little brother, but I sent the pictures of me and everything, but they said that I was too juicy. Well, I look too big to be his younger brother. Now, with that said, I would probably not have gotten the role anyway, but I thought that was if there was a reason to not get a role, that was probably the best reason ever. So I felt good with myself anyway, and I felt especially good since I got so much support. So that was really heartfelt. So if you participated in that little operation, I give a heartfelt thank you to you. Now, anyway, I have mixed feelings about the Vikings series, and especially the later seasons, and I would just like to elaborate a bit on, first and foremost, the bad things, and then I will end with the positive, with the good things, so to end the rambling on a positive note. Now, the bad things is one thing in particular which I could just not endorse with my silence, and the primordial truth disproves this barbarism 100%, and that is a scene where Ragnar shares his wife with the monk, and this is obviously so far from anything that is reasonable. This is so far from anything that is real, that it isn't, I don't even know where to begin to describe how heretical this is. Now, obviously, when we talk about like TV series and they want to incorporate unrealistic things such as elements of mythology or something like that, that's absolutely fine. If one of the characters has a dream or something like that and they put in some aspects of mythology, that is one thing. But when it's something that is supposed to be real, such as sexual relationships, and then they throw in stuff like that, it's so horrendously blasphemous. And I mean, any high testosterone Viking chieftain would rather take an axe and hack someone to death than let him even look at his wife. And not to mention the Viking queen, or the chieftain's wife, she would obviously not allow herself to be taken by what is basically a slave. Absolutely blasphemous. So yeah, the primordial truth disproves this, and that was just something that bothered me quite a bit, especially if they want to portray my own ancestors in a certain way. I can, go along with a lot of things, but not that sort of, well, basically cocking in its proper sense of the words. If you want a good sex scene that is realistic, you can watch 300 Rise of an Empire, where it's a quite short film, action-packed, quite visually pleasing as well, and that is a realistic sex scene, whereas the sex scene in Vikings there with Lagertha and the monk, it's something really bad. Then obviously there are other certain cultural Marxist elements which I am not all too comfortable with, but I think the most extreme example was that, and that's just something I want to distance myself from. Now, on the good parts, and this is quite important to point out as well, and that is the aesthetics of the series, and like how it looks. It looks good, and it looks quite authentic indeed. Now, I'm sure there are flaws, etc., and obviously flaws in the plot and flaws in how they portray certain characters and the social dynamic, etc. But just looking at the aesthetics and everything, it's visually pleasing, and when they portray our ancestors in any way, it reinforces our identity. So my identity as a Norseman is reinforced by just looking at these sort of things. And that's obviously something that is excruciatingly important in this particular moment in time, when they try to sever our roots completely. So even if it's a bit flawed, the portrayal of our ancestors, it's still something that is good, because it reinforces the sense of who and what we are. So when I see things such as Vikings, that makes me happy, and then obviously I get a bit angry when they distort certain things. But in the grand scheme of things, the more Viking sort of aesthetics that is being portrayed, the better. So same thing with certain music. So Amon Amart, obviously you get that sense of being a guardian of Asgard, for example, as all these sort of things, they add to the sense of who and what we are. And that is obviously something that is very important for us in Generation Identity. Now I'm not part of the organization itself, but I meant Generation Identity as our generation that rediscovers our identity. So anyway, that was a bad thing and also a good thing. And in a coming video, I will elaborate on Spartacus Blood and Sand, because a similar sort of thing can be found there, where you have testosterone as motivation, but also quite a bit of degeneracy. But yeah, that will be for a coming video. XOXO, boom.